I'm so fascinated by this. Explain why the video doesn't cut it for you, why you need this AI version.
Well, like everyone else, when I saw the video of my client with that gun, I was like, holy smokes, this does not look good. And my client got judged nationally very harshly for this video. I realized as a trial lawyer, once I learned the whole story, that his wife had been beaten, that his son had been beaten, that the party planner, an older woman who had a chair thrown at her by the DJ, they were all attacked. My client was then woken up minutes later and told his wife to call 911, got his gun, and wanted to make sure his employees weren't going to be hurt or killed, that his place wasn't going to be demolished. He went in there to try to calm things down and tell them all to leave. So I knew I had to balance that video and show a jury or the judge exactly what happened before he had to resort to survival and to protecting himself and standing his ground by pulling out that gun. So I decided to do an animation. And then part of that animation, I asked that it be shown in virtual reality so that the judge and or a jury could see through my client's own eyes exactly how he was surrounded and faced with this life-altering decision where he had to protect himself and pull that gun out.
Right now, the case is before a judge. You haven't had the trial yet. The judge is going to determine whether your client had a right to stand his ground, a right to wave the gun, and if the judge agrees with you, the case is over. So walk us through this virtual reality animation. We'll show it right now. Walk us through what you're trying to show.
This one right here is through my client's eyes, what we're watching right here. This is actually what the judge looked at in those virtual reality headsets and what a jury would look at to show what my client saw. He was heading towards the DJ to tell him to turn the music off. You have to go home. He's surrounded by a group of intoxicated wedding guests who then begin to coalesce around him and surround him. And he's still not pulling out the gun. He's just telling everyone to go home, go home. He's putting up his hand. He's saying, leave, you have to leave. And then he's grabbed and the gun has to come out. My client is older. He's smaller than the man that is in front of him. He's surrounded by a whole bunch of different people. And he walked into that place with a cane. He had to have surgery on one of his arms. And when he's grabbed, that's the last straw. He thought his life was in jeopardy, and he thought that he needed to protect himself by pulling that gun out. He never fired it. He never said he was going to kill anyone or shoot anyone. He just kept repeating over and over, get out, get out, get out.
So what do you do when the prosecutor says, wait a minute, this animation is bogus because you're doing this based on what the defendant says happened, and we dispute what the defendant says, so you can't admit that VR animation is evidence?
You're describing every single trial that has ever existed in life. There's always two sides. That's why you have a prosecution and a defense. And the theory is that those two clash together, and the dust cloud that forms overhead, the jury looks at and determines what is the truth and what is not. And it's the same thing whether you use photographs, whether you use video, or whether you use virtual reality. It's going to be based in good faith upon the evidence that one side believes supports that virtual reality or that animation, and then the other side has the opportunity to attack it, to attack the credibility of the expert, to attack the credibility of witnesses through cross-examination. That is the essence of a trial. And just because we're now at a point where we get to use evidence in a way that that the jury can best understand very lengthy or complex testimonial evidence in a short period of time, both sides have an opportunity to use it. I used the animation for the first time as a prosecutor in 1992. And now as a defense attorney, I'm using virtual reality because my client is innocent. And I want the best way to communicate to the judge and potentially a jury my client's innocence.